Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the greatest recordings ever. And today we have an amazing disc. One of the problems with unfamiliar repertoire, let me just start there, is that, and I've said this before, is that you really want to have the best performances, to sell the product. If it's unusual or it's a little different, people don't know what it is, at least get the finest, most committed, most amazing possible performance to give it the best possible chance of breaking through that glass ceiling, into the basic repertoire. And it doesn't happen often, but there are some instances where it did, and this is one of those. The disc in question is this one. The Martinu and Piston 6th Symphonies. Here on CD, it's also got the Minotti Violin Concerto with Tosi Spivakovsky, which is really rather cool. But the original disc was Martinu and Piston Symphonies number 6, both commissioned by Charles Munch with the Boston Symphony in the late 1950s, and both premiered by Charles Munch and the Boston Symphony in the late 1950s, and recorded for RCA by Charles Munch and the Boston Symphony in the late 1950s. Now, the chances of that happening were not very, very great because the major record labels wanted another Beethoven violin concerto with a famous soloist. I mean, they wanted, Schubert symphonies. They wanted Mozart. They wanted Brahms. They did not want Piston and Martinu. Brand new, spanking new, fresh, hot off the presses, 6 symphonies. They didn't. I mean, they didn't think they could sell them. They didn't think it was their business to sell them. They didn't want to try to sell them. Every so often, they would commit, commercial seppuku, as for example, when Sony recorded like the complete Webern, Schoenberg, and Stravinsky things. I mean, they would once in a while they would feel altruistic if they were making money and if they felt strongly enough about it. They had Goddard Lieberson who, felt that way. RCA, well, not so much. Not quite so much. Although they did do their share of contemporary things, which they duly issued and then deleted as soon as possible. There's a fabulous disc of Ginastera's Piano Concerto and Variaciones Concertantes with Eric Leinsdorf of the Boston Symphony, which it would be awfully nice to see come out one of these centuries, and things like that. There were contemporary pieces. They paid their dues in the most abstemious way possible. I mean, that's really the truth. But here it was a fabulous disc, and I remember when this was out on LP. I mean, I discovered it actually when I was classical music director at WJHU, and it was. By then, it had been unavailable for like centuries. It was reissued eventually, I think, on Gold Seal. I mean, it did come back on a budget label for like 15 minutes. It was never sold or promoted or mentioned or discussed. It was like having your embarrassing aunt over for Thanksgiving. You feed them and get rid of them. You didn't want to talk about them or let anyone know that they were part of the family. But this is one of the great recordings in the Charles Munch discography. It really is. He was a passionate advocate of Martinu's music for his entire career, and recorded it from his earliest days as a conductor, but was never allowed to do all the symphonies or to make any sort of solid commitment to more of Martinu's music, which is tragic. And Piston was, at Harvard, and he had written these seminal textbooks on orchestration and harmony and counterpoint and everything. He was a major academic and a major figure in American neoclassicism, and a symphonist really of first rank. I mean, his second and fourth and sixth, and I mean, they're wonderful pieces. Actually, they're really very good works, most of them. So why don't we ever get to hear them? Well, that was a question, wasn't it? And the 6th is a crowd pleaser of a symphony. It really is. The finale is full of those Western Americanism type sounds that instantly identify where the composer is from, if not necessarily who the composer must be. And it has a beautiful slow movement, a really beautiful slow movement with a serene cello solo. It's gorgeous. gorgeous. A delicious scherzo that's very fast and very quiet, full of snap, crackle, and pop percussion. And the Martinu is acknowledged as a late masterpiece. I mean, it really is. It is one of the most evocative and haunting pieces of music that anybody ever wrote. It's extraordinary, full of, I mean, it uses a standard orchestra, but it makes just the most amazing sounds. And it's a lovely combination of just these exotic, lush sound effects. The opening sounds like a swarm of insects or bees, for example, these insectoid noises. There's a big climax in the middle of the finale that sounds like some sort of, nuclear meltdown of some kind. I mean, it's really amazing. But on top of that, there's that Czech folk music element, these wonderful songful tunes that are neither major nor minor and incredibly soulful. I mean, just beautiful music, wonderful music. And it's splendidly played and recorded by the dedicatees. And that's a rare thing. And everybody should own this for that reason. This is the Japanese issue. It was in the Japanese Munch edition, but it's in the Munch box. And hopefully, I mean, it seems if you look on Amazon, you can find it in sort of strange incarnations. It was licensed various ways. But Piston and Martinu Sixth Symphonies is one of the great discs of contemporary music ever made, and one of the greatest discs ever. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.